Today, if you're watching this video, I'm going to take you, the viewer, on a little journey. And that little journey is going to take you towards the manifestation of your person, your soulmate, your twin soul, your divine counterpart in this lifetime. And you may ask, well, Brandon, how are you going to take me on a journey towards manifesting my person? We all have different timelines. We all have different sequences or timings for these types of things. And really, that is up to God, isn't it, Brandon? And I say, yes, it is. However, if you understand one specific thing about your life, about the way you're made, and really about your soul's blueprint, you can understand exactly how the process you were made to go through and how to manifest your person in this lifetime as quickly as possible. Today, we're going to be looking at the story of the houses in astrology. And what I'm going to show you specifically, if you stick around to the end of this video, is the absolute unique way. You've never heard this anywhere else. I promise you that if you study a birth chart, your birth chart or any birth chart, just generally speaking, you can find out this is the process through which my life must go through in order to be with my person, to be with the partner that God wants me in this lifetime. So I'm super excited. Let's go ahead and dive right in without further ado. And we're going to be going into the astrology chart, blank astrology chart here to talk about this. Now, really quickly, before we dive in, no matter if you like this video, no matter if you have a birth chart up or you know how to look at one or you know your birth time or you don't, none of it's going to matter because what I'm going to share today is going to just be general magical knowledge that I promise is going to be like life-changing for you if you really take it in. Okay, so take notes if you need to. What I'm going to share is two things. It's based on a field of astrology called evolutionary astrology, but also combined with my own brand of astrology, which I call empowerment astrology. And the way that I've decided to look at this is, and really have realized through my work in the world about what astrology is this is your soul's blueprint. I believe astrology is a gift from God to help us as humans figure out what we're here to do in our life journey specifically. Okay. So, and astrology's been around, for those of you who don't know, it's been around for thousands of years, both channeled from the ancients, but also quantified with science and observational data over the years, over many, 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 many years. And so we'd be fools, honestly, to not study the heck out of astrology. That's what I realized when I started studying astrology. We'd be fools to not know at least the basics of this wonderful art and science. Okay. But today, I'm going to talk about something I promise you've never heard of or you've never realized that this astrology chart does. Because inside of this astrology chart is the secret towards the manifestation of your person. Okay. Whatever you want to call them, soulmate, twin soul, divine counterpart, doesn't matter. Okay. And that person, that partnership for most people lies in the 7th house. Okay. As we pass upward towards this horizon line, we go into the next part of life, which the next part of our life, or during and after the 7th house, we go into the 7th house in our birth chart, is the life we lead with and for our partner and for the world. Okay. So as we go above the 7th house, it stops becoming so much about us individually and it becomes more about the person we're with as well as the world. Still is always going to be about us, right? But it becomes more of a shared experience. Okay. Now, here's the thing about astrology is before we get to the 7th house, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 houses to go through in your life process. Okay, before you can get to the 7th house, before astrology says, before you get to, in your life destiny, your life purpose, the way you're born and how your life's going to go, before you can get to your partnership or be someone capable and established, or even in some ways you can say worthy of living life with a shared experience, with a shared partner and for the world, you have to go through a set of lessons, experiences, and breakthroughs, okay, underneath the surface in order to get to that next segment of life. Okay, follow me here. Astrology and the houses are actually ordered in a very specific way for a very specific reason. It's not just, it's not just labeled house number 1, house number 2, house number 3 just randomly. It's actually legitimately in that order. Okay, the order of your life goes in this way. And I'm going to talk about exactly what those things are right now. So I'm going to go through the houses right now. Okay, we're going to go through all 12 houses, just very basically, generally what they mean about you and your life path, your life chart. But we're gonna for the purpose of this video, we're gonna talk about 1 through up to 7. But we're gonna talk about everything. So in astrology, let's start with the first house. Okay, what is the first house? This is going to be rapid fire, generally speaking. First house is I am. Okay, I am. Therefore, I show up. Okay, so the first house is you literally being born into this world. It is the very start to your existence as a soul here on earth. This human life and your soul's experience in this human body here on earth. Okay? So the first house is all about your literal physical existence. It's about you saying, hi, hello. Well, I'm welcoming myself to this world. And it's Aries energy, right? I'm going to go explore and do and find out what the heck this is all about. Okay, this is first house energy. You don't even know. Like the first house is like, you don't even know what life is about. You don't know what you're about. You're just going. Okay, that's first house energy, right? In your chart, this is what it represents. It also represents your physical body, but it's really, this is just you, right? This is your physical manifestation here on earth. That's where everything starts, with conception, right? Conception and inception, your soul's inception into this human body, into this life. Okay, so the first house is obviously a very important house. It's one of the signature houses when it comes to energy and leadership and all about you. But in an evolutionary way or a soul blueprint way, that's what it stands for, generally speaking. Okay, so I am. Now, as we move from that state of consciousness, right? The first house state of consciousness, which is I'm just born into this world. I'm a little baby. I'm just exploring. I don't know what anything is. Eventually, we come to a place within our soul's path where here's Taurus energy. Okay, not specifically Taurus because, houses and signs are different, but related to Taurus energy, which is I have to come up with a set of values for myself. Okay, so second house rules our values, how we think about how we're going to act in the world, how we think about what is right about how we act in this world, okay? Or what we deem is actually important or worthwhile to our human existence, our human experience in this world, in this lifetime, okay? So after birth, at some point in time, the next proper step to go through as a human, as a soul on this earth, is to at some point develop some values, okay? Second house is also about self-confidence. So it's self-confidence related to self-values. So when you have your values in life, when you have your priorities, like, okay, I've existed as my first house self, then I go into second house and I've established that I care about that, I care about that, I care about this, and my life should be about, generally speaking, this, right? Whatever those things are. Those are your values, right? When you've established those things about yourself, and we can call them, a lot of people call them principles in the self-help world. When you've established those things about yourself, you also gain a bit of confidence, or a lot of confidence, I should say. In fact, many people skip this step, okay? And the reason I'm talking about this is because some people can go from, first house to, let's say, fifth house, which we'll talk about, to ninth house, to seventh house, then back to third house, and then to second house, right? So sometimes that's what happens in life, okay? But that's not actually the best or proper order. And sometimes that's out of our control, right? Like we don't really have control which area of life we, get thrown into or choose to go into. And part of this is, your first house identity, your Aries energy within you is going to sometimes do that. It's going to take you all over the place. But in the astrological knowledge, in the astrological wisdom, it says, actually the next thing you should do after existence is come up with your values. Okay, what are you going to stand for in this world? What is important to you? What is not important to you? And what are you here for? Okay. And once you understand that to at least a certain degree, let's say even 30% of like you understand why, what you stand for, what's important to you, now you're going to be able to stand on solid ground, right? So that's that very strong second house Taurian energy. It's going to give you solid ground to stand on. And without second house energy, you're going to feel flimsy, right? People are going to be able to push you around. People are going to be able to influence you to do this or do that because you don't have a solid base of this is what I stand for. This is what is important to me. And this is my foundation. Okay. So that's why Taurus is very solid earth energy because you need it. Okay. That's the second thing that we're doing. You guys see where I'm going with this, right? So keep in mind yeah, we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this. But houses 1 through 4, okay? Houses 1 through 4 are all about you. Okay? So they're all about the self. That's where we have to start. Okay? Houses 5 and 6, okay, are honestly like the preparation, like the final preparation periods for getting ready for the other. Okay? Essentially. And then as we move into the 7th and beyond, or at least the 7th to the 10th, this is going to be about the other and the world. Okay. And then 11th and 12th house are going to be farewell, goodbyes, final preparations before you leave this earth. We'll talk about all this, how you're going to leave your legacy, basically. But we're jumping way ahead. But I want you guys to know, and gals to know, like, where this is going, kind of where I'm going with this, so you can follow along and really understand this, because I believe some of you, if you understand this, you'll really unlock something today. Okay, that's what I really feel. And in the extended, we're going to have an extended program with this, by the way, which is going to go even deeper. We're actually in the extended. I recommend you have your birth time. So if you don't have your birth time, I wouldn't get the extended. But if you do have your birth time, we're going to talk about each of the houses, each of the signs in the houses 1 through 6. So it's going to go through every rising sign, all 12 rising signs. So know your rising sign. You got to have your birth time for that. And we're going to go through each of the signs' individual like journeys of how to get prepared for your person this lifetime. Okay. It's going to be really fun. So that's going to be the extended. If you want to go deeper after this, check out the featured products below. But let's get back into it. So after second house, okay, now we've established, now we've existed. We come to the earth, come to the world. Second house, we established our values. Okay. And third house, what happens is we learn to and how to communicate those values. Okay. Wow. Surprise, surprise. Right. You can't just have values if you don't learn to communicate them, right? Which is related, of course, to Gemini. All right. So third house is now you have the confidence, you have the values, and now you're feeling confident enough to be able to express those values. Okay. Now, if you think about this, there's a lot that's being established here, right? So I want you to reflect on your own life, and I want you to think, so far, are any of these areas still not complete for me, right? Is my first house just raw, innocent exploration of the world, right? Just kind of freely doing and exploring whatever I want to explore until I find out, who I am to the degree that I can establish my values. Have I done that? Second house, have I established those values based on what I feel is important to me in this world? And do I have the confidence to stand on those values? Also second house. And third house, am I able to articulate? Okay. Am I able to express those values, at least to the degree that I feel is necessary, right? That your life has deemed as necessary for you to be able to express. Okay. Now, this is a very people. It's funny. A lot of people just diss on the third house. If it's not like an angular house, like the first house, seventh house, fourth house, like they don't want to know, right? It's just like a dumb house. I never like that. Every house is very significant in astrology. Okay, some are major players, of course, but the third house is very important because if you can't express what you stand for, well, you can't really move yourself, can you? Right? Because third house is also, by the way, movement. It's about, I mean, on a basic level too, it's about like short trips, literally, is what the third house can entail, and vehicles. But it's really about the base of it is expression. It's if you can articulate your values and what you stand for, you can move yourself forward. You can also move things around you in the world, right? Our words can move things around us, towards us, away from us, right? And so we have to learn how to express those parts of ourselves, those values, very very well, very articulately. Okay, very important. Okay, as we move forward from the third house, we get to the fourth house. Now, this is after all of this. Okay, we've done all of this work. We've explored the world and ourselves. We've established our values. We've learned to articulate our values. Maybe we've had some debates with people, okay, about what we stand for in the world in our life, and we feel confident in that degree. So now it's time to rest. Okay, right? Would you agree? And now at some point you're going to have to rest. You're going to have to recoup. Maybe you need to go into hermit mode for a little bit. Okay, this is where the fourth house comes into play. Fourth house, obviously, it is an angular house, but it's very critical in every way because it represents your home environment. And not just, I mean, the biggest thing is like, do you have a place that you can call home, like physically, but also emotionally within yourself? Both of those things are relevant, right? But if we're talking about raw survival and the theme of what we're talking about and how you're existing in this world, well, at some point you're going to need to build a shelter. Like you're going to need to have a shelter. You're going to need to have some place to be able to sleep safely, feel secure, be safe, okay, from dangers and from any, all types of things in this world. That's the fourth house. It's the place that you can go home to or back to after a long day of debates and a long day of self-reflection of your values and exploration of the world, and you can recharge, you can rest. Okay, now let's pause here because this is the basics survival this is the basic survival necessities of every individual human in this world. Okay, meaning before we do anything else here, before we go on and we start going into the fun times of the fifth and sixth house into the seventh house, these things have to be established first within us as individual humans. We all have to establish this first. We have to find our home or build a home or a shelter, okay? At least within ourselves, right? We have to feel like there's a place we can go that we feel safe and we can emotionally and physically rest, right? Like think about your life. I want you to think about your life if you didn't have a home or you didn't have at least a shelter or you didn't have, like let's say the apartment or the home you're renting or the home you bought, like you didn't have it. And maybe you're like staying every night in a motel every 2 nights or whatever, right? Or you're staying with your parents' house in and out. It's like you can't really thrive because you're constantly moving from place to place and there's no place that you can be at home, right? At least physically. So that is very important. You have to get that solidified first before you can move on. Same thing with the third house, right? You have to be able to express what you are and what you want. Very important foundation, particularly going into a relationship. And before that, right, you have to know what you stand for, know your values. And the first house is also, you have to have been able to figure out all of that stuff by just raw existence and exploration of the world, okay? Through your unconscious self, right? The first house is really just the existence of the unconscious self, exploring the world. Okay, so this is the precursors. Now, a lot of people on this planet don't have these things yet, right? Am I wrong on this? Like a lot of people on this planet do not have these first 4 areas solidly figured out first, okay? Before they go straight to the 7th house. It's crazy. And I'm guilty of this too, by the way. I'm very guilty of this. So don't feel bad. You know what I'm saying? But this is actually the order. This is the real order. Now, if you don't have one of these things figured out, your relationships, guess what's going to happen, okay? your relationship and God are going to send you straight back to go. Or what's in Monopoly, you could go straight back to the jail card. You go straight back to somewhere, I forget. But you go straight back to the go. You go back to the beginning of the board because you got to go do that first. And that's what we call sometimes like a karmic lesson or a karmic redirection. Okay? So I want to be clear. Now, a couple things I want to say. It doesn't mean you can't meet your person, your soulmate, your twin soul before you've gotten all those things figured out. You definitely can meet that person. You definitely like can know that person. You don't have to, but you can. But until you actually do get those things done, that relationship, right? Even if you know the person, is going to be rocky, right? It's not going to be prepared yet. It's going to be uncertain, unsettled, because God is saying, no, you have to figure these things out. This is your foundation, right? First of you. Okay. So before you can move forward, we have to get you to do that. And if you don't, right? In another scenario, it's like if you don't have those things figured out, you could just keep, being romantic with different people or dating different people, and then every single one ends horribly. And you're like, well, why is it ending horribly in why do I feel here's a good one. Check this out. One common question, right? That you'll hear in the world today. People will say, well, they go from, whatever. They skip the second and third house. They go straight to the seventh house, and they say, why do my relationships keep ending with me feeling disrespected about my point of view? Right? My partner doesn't respect my point of view, or my partner doesn't want to settle down with me. That's another one. Okay. I wonder why that keeps happening in your relationship life. Okay. Maybe you haven't established that within yourself, fourth house. Maybe you haven't even established what you really stand for in this world. Okay. And your continued failed relationships keep trying to redirect you to figure out what the heck you really stand for. Okay. So until you do that, and if you keep refusing to do that, and you keep trying to date people, right? It's just going to keep pushing you back into that same energy. Okay. How many people have experienced this where you've experienced, it's the same energy through different people or even the same person over and over? And you're like, why? Well, there's a lesson. There's always a lesson of what you may have skipped when it comes to your individual foundation. Okay. I told you this is going to be crazy, unique, and no one's ever heard of this. This was all just channeled to me over time. I have a very unique approach when it comes to astrology. And it's really helped me understand life, right? And even to this day, I get new downloads all the time. And, I look forward to sharing those with you all if you want to see them. I figured this video would be interesting to my audience because it's going to tell you how to manifest your person like permanently, okay? Through astrology. Now, so that's okay. So we've taken all care of that. Now, after we've taken care of houses 1 through 4, your basic survival individual needs. By the way, if you wanted to in life, you don't have to go beyond that. Most everyone 99% of people are, because we as humans constantly crave the next thing, right? We constantly crave the next level, the next expansion, the next thing. Most people won't stop at just conquering these 4 levels, right? These 4 houses in astrology. They'll want to go deeper, understandably. They'll be like, all right, I've got my stuff taken care of, but now what's next, right? Well, I'll tell you what's next. After we have our security, we have our expression, we have our values, we have our existence, the 5th house comes in. And what is the 5th house about? 5th house is about the good times and the fun and the recreation, okay? This is about us feeling stable enough, confident enough, okay? Secure enough within ourselves to start to really look for hobbies, recreational passions, different forms of entertainment, okay, that we can either consume and enjoy or put on for the world, conversely. Okay. It's also right on a very deep level where we as a child, okay, I like to call it the inner child house too. Okay, most people again don't realize this because they just associate 5th house as children, right? But on an evolutionary level, it's your inner child. What is your inner child, right? what is your inner child? What does your inner child want you to do that you never got a chance to do when you were figuring out your survival? Okay, so I want to be very clear: is that, and this is the experience with most people, is that before we can really rest and enjoy and have this recreational, pleasureful experience of life, which is the fifth house, many of us, if not most of us, unless we're born into like rich, wealthy families, have to go through this like figure it out period. We have to go through this survival period, right? We have to figure out ourselves, figure out our values, figure out how to express those values, to move things around. Okay. And through that process, it's very common that people don't really get a chance to express their inner child, right? Or to express the part of themselves that just wants to play and have fun and enjoy the experience of life. And this is where the fifth house is so important. And I want to say this too, because many people don't realize this. People will kind of poop on like having entertainment in your life, or doing things for fun or leisure or just for pure enjoyment. And or they'll be like, well, that's a waste of time, or that's not even an important life. That's just something that is like, you know, uh, it's not productive. It's like, this is actually a part of life. Okay. I'm not saying astrology knows everything, because God knows everything, right? Astrology is just a tool. But if this whole house was included just to include like entertainment and fun in our life, it's a very important part of us, right? So we have to have that too in that space. So this is, we're going a little wild here. We're enjoying life. We're being recreational. We're experimenting. We're just having a blast. And most importantly, we're expressing our inner child's wants, needs, and desires that it never got to express in the first through fourth house. Now, I'll ask you this. How many of you have not ever done that for yourself? Okay, right? Guilty over here. How many of you have not stopped and asked your inner child, hey, inner child, what do you want to do? And your inner child just, I want to play with trucks and get a boat and do some crazy stuff that I don't really have the money for. And you're like, well, no, that's not going to happen. And then your inner child keeps being repressed, and then you completely miss out on the fifth house. Well, guess what? If you try to skip out on the fifth house and again go straight to your relationship or other parts of life, you're going to be burnt out. You're going to burn out because your inner child is going to rebel. Okay? How many of you have a rebellious inner child? I'm like speaking to myself right now. I'm like speaking right to myself. Like, how many of you? I'm like, yeah, I have that too. Okay, so here's what will happen. I promise you. Your inner child will rebel. You'll start to feel burned out, motivationless, fatigued all the time, cranky, just not caring about life because your inner child's like, screw this. You don't even give me a chance to participate with you, right? With adult version of you. Okay, so that's fifth house. So what is that for you? And what does your inner child need you to do before you get into a relationship? Okay. Notice again, we're still before the seventh house here. All of this is before a relationship, like the permanent relationship, right? Again, I want to stress, most people get into relationships before they've done all of this, but typically they're not the one. They're not the permanent relationship. They're just casual things. I'm not talking about, the seventh house is not a casual hookup, okay? This is your lifelong partnership, okay? Partnerships, generally speaking, and your lifetime association with another person or other people, generally speaking, okay? So that's what I'm talking about. All of this has to be done before that can be a permanent, successful feature in your life. Now, we move to the sixth house. All right. So after having the time of your life, and let's say you go get that boat and you just play around like a child and you do what you need to do. You play video games and you just have a blast, okay? You've expressed your inner child. Now your inner child's satisfied. And now you've just had a bunch of fun. And so now you're kind of bored with that fun. Okay, what happens is you get bored. You like, imagine if you just go have fun all the time. Eventually, you kind of get bored of the fun, and you kind of want to go back to work, right? You want to be of service. You want to actually contribute to the world, right? What a thought. And you go, well, you know what? I actually need to work. Sixth house is service. Okay. It's how you are here, the unique ways in which you are here to serve the world. Okay. To work and really to serve others. Now, here's an incredibly important point that I hope those of you who need to get this point get this point, because I cannot overstate how important this point is. Okay, so check it out. The sixth house is the final house before the seventh house, right? Which we know once you get to the seventh house, God says, "All right, here's your here's your permanent relationship," right? Which means it's like the biggest, most important lesson you must learn to be able to enter God's relationship for you. And here's what it is. You have to learn how to serve the other. Understand? You have to learn how to serve the other, to bow down and give yourself and your heart and your service selflessly to the other before you can enter into God's relationship. Okay? This is one of the, if not the most important prerequisite to going into God's union for you. I know. How crazy is that? And most people today in the modern world, they'll say, and I might even get people commenting on this relationship, on this YouTube channel. They'll say, what are you talking about? I'm not a servant. I will not serve my partner. That's abuse. And I'm not going to serve them until they serve me and all these things. It's like, listen, this is not me talking. This is literally the science of how it works. This is God saying, hey, your relationship is about the other. It's about the other. Eventually, if you go through, it will be about the family, your family, right? It's not about you so much anymore. You will always be important. But the final test, so to speak, is can you selflessly serve the other? Okay. Can you show God, can you prove to God, hey, I'm here to be of service. I'm willing to sacrifice some of what I want and what I need for the other person in my service to them, generally speaking. Okay. That's the sixth house. This is the sixth house. You can imagine this is the sixth house bowing down and surrendering themselves to the other. Okay. It's understanding the other. You know, this whole debate I've talked about, overstand, hyperstand, understand, and the words and all these things. I understand what it means. Well, yeah, I comprehend you know, the different meanings and why you should say overstands or all that stuff, the debate around it. But here's what I have to say is that the word understand is very sacred to me. And it's very much integrated in astrology, because in order to, with the word understand, it means you are putting yourself underneath someone else to receive what they are saying, to listen. Right? In Japanese culture, what do? They bow. They put their heads down. This is sixth house. Right? Because you can't understand someone unless you are willing to allow them, okay, to be in the forefront here. Unless you are willing to put yourself under them temporarily, not saying this is like a permanent thing, constantly put yourself under people, but sometimes we have to do that first. Before we can overstand over people, we have to understand. This is humility as well. This is also leadership 101. Who wants to serve a leader who's not willing to understand his or her followers and thinks that they know it all, right? This is a leader who says, oh, I'm not going to understand. I'm just going to overstand over everything. You can't even get a word to that person because they're not willing to put themselves down for a second, get off their high horse and listen. Okay? So understand, right? That we all need to understand the significance of the sixth house. before we go into the 7th house. Now, if, and God says, if we understand all of these lessons successfully, okay, 1 through 6, and we show God. Now, I want to stress, God has a unique way. If you're wondering, okay, Brandon, I get it, but how do I do that? How do I do the 6th house lesson? Well, God will show you your way. Like, God will show you the way in which you are designed. And that's what we'll talk about in the extended, if you're interested. Okay, like how each sign is going to end up having to do this. But each sign will have a particular way. God will say, this is my quote unquote test for you on how you're here to serve others, right? Before you can enter into your relationship. Okay. So again, it could be through a variety of things. It could be like serving your family, serving work or career, serving your clients, serving a relationship. Like, it could be a lot of things, right? Okay. Let's say some of you are in a relationship, right? And you haven't learned that lesson yet. Well, your marriage is on the other side of that lesson. Okay. The permanence of that union is on the other side of that servitude, you learning to serve your partner in your relationship. Okay. Good. And them, of course, learning to serve you in an equal give and take situation. Okay. So those are like the main most important points. I don't want this video to be like hours long. So the rest is going to be just very speedy, okay? Because I think for most people that's why you're going to watch this video is like, okay, well, what is the process, right? I'll briefly talk about the rest of the life story, right? 8 through 12. So 8th house, now you and your person, right? 2 instead of 1, or 2 as 1. This is what's going to happen. And what's funny is that this is already, because I saw this in a vision, right? Like, God showed this to me about how because I was confused about the 8th house at first. I'm like, how does that work in this channeling, right? And God said the 8th house is about destruction of the old self, the former self, like the individuated self. So ironically, everything you build up here to get into your relationship subsequently gets destroyed in the 8th house because of the union between you and your person. And you might say in the 8th house stage, you might say, this is a very common thing for people in their 8th house stage of life. Ready? Why did I do all this for nothing? Right? You'll hear people in their 8th house stage go, literally everything I've done, everything I've built, everything I've tried to be and do in love and in life was for nothing. It all went to crap out of nowhere, right? How many of you have experienced that? That's 8th house. That's a good thing. That means you're pretty far progressed, right? That means you are on your journey. That means you're on your journey, your divine union, your soul journey, right? That means that also means, by the way, you've met the people or the person necessary to trigger that in you. Okay? That's what it means. Now, if you've met multiple people who've triggered that within you, you needed a lot of destruction. Right? Okay? All right, so good. So this is why people who come into relationship, not always, it depends on the type of relationship, the type of soul connection, but oftentimes people who then enter into their 7th house union will subsequently separate for a bit, or go their separate ways for a bit, or separate. Okay? Because God says we have to destroy each of your individuated selves, right? Come back around and then come to be as one. You see? Because when you meet the right person, they're for you, right? God is saying it's not that you're separated from that person. When you meet the right person, let me stress, okay? It's not God is saying you're not done with that person, but you need to be apart from that person so you can kill off yourself, kill off your old self, I should say. Okay, please. And the other person kill off their old self and then come together as one. Okay? So this is, again, as you probably know, a very common experience that we all go through. Well, here it is in astrology. because the rest of the chart is now going to be you operating as you and your person operating as one. Okay. Now this is where the fun stuff really begins. This is where all the grandiose channeled readings that I've done over the course of my channel really come in, because now we get to the 9th house and the 10th house, right? And I'm just going to briefly go through this. This 9th house is the house of I am finally qualified to teach. Okay. Not necessarily, I mean, technically 9th house is like your acquired knowledge, but it doesn't have to be, because 9th house also relies on, it actually is mostly reliant on your experience and your experiences. Okay. So 9th house finally says, we are going to take everything we've gone through, everything from the beginning of our existence here on earth into our divine union, into our destruction and separation, and then coming back together as one, right? All that experience, and now we're going to teach from there, from that place, as one unit. Okay. Now, I want to say this here, is that as you may have discerned, in this particular channeling of the way your chart is going to serve you, right? Those of you who are, as if you watched yesterday's reading, right? I'm talking to people who are meant to be in a divine union, okay? So this is not, I wouldn't say that this is going to be for everyone on earth, okay, in this lifetime, but eventually God is saying it will be for everyone. This is the way it will go. So not everyone is in this lifetime, right? I want you to realize that. Not everyone, like you might, let's say you showed this to some random person, it's not going to apply to them at all, because this isn't their lifetime that they're going to experience their evolutionary chart in this way, right? Like they might not have the divine partner in this lifetime, et cetera, et cetera. You see what I'm saying? So it's only going to apply to who I'm talking to. Obviously, I always channel for who I'm talking to, the audience here. But in this lifetime, notice, right? After the 8th house is over, the destruction is over, now you come together and you are teaching, but you are teaching together, side by side as one unit, through and because of all the experience that led you there. Because the most powerful, and I must stress, the most powerful and capable and future leaders, mark my words, on this earth and planet will be those who are in a divine union. I promise you. I promise you. I promise you. I promise you. That's what God has shown me. The earth will be ruled. The earth will be, the kings and queens of the earth will rule. Kings and queens together of the earth will rule, and their families. Okay? That's what's coming. So this is why God is saying in this lifetime, as you get to the 9th, 10th, and 11th house, you're going to be with your person. You're going to be in your truest purpose with your person. Okay? So your purpose is going to evolve, change completely, or evolve into something completely new once we get into the 9th house here in this lifetime. Then we go to the 10th house. Of course, 10th house, what is 10th house? It's going to be our legacy. Okay? So it's going to be the legacy you and your person leave behind, whatever that's going to be, right? Your public or everlasting legacy, whether that's your children, whether that's your messages, whether that's your stories that you put out, whether that's your teachings, okay, whether that's your businesses that you do, right? This is what you and your person ultimately do and create to impact the world in a positive way, that you use in conjunction with your teachings. Okay? So of course, right, 10th house is fueled by the 9th house, where whatever it is you are teaching or experienced at, or you and your person are masters at in this lifetime, will end up being the fuel that you, or the raw sustenance you both use to create your long-lasting impact or legacy or businesses or family, whatever it is, right? And then boom, you and your person have completed your public mission, right? You've completed your greatest legacy here on earth, your greatest impact, You both feel fulfilled on a soul level that you did it. Okay. You lived your mission out here on earth with your person. And then we get to the final stages. And what are the final stages? Sustenance. Okay. What do I mean by sustenance? Well, for every legacy, right? For every accomplishment that happens, it's not what is the purpose of accomplishing anything unless it can have a long or even everlasting impact on other people or on the world. I would argue nothing. Like we probably don't remember hundreds and thousands of creators, of inventors who accomplished some great things in their time, but we have nothing. We don't even know about them today. That they're nothing. Like in their time, they were like legends, right? They accomplished something incredible. I'm sure there are tons of people like that in history. But because there was nothing that kept their impact or kept their invention or kept their words alive through the years, they have no impact anymore today. Okay. Now they may have been a catalyst for other things to happen, and it's all good, but their specific value or legacy is gone, because the 11th house is about creating, right, organizations or influencing other entities, meaning corporations, government entities, places of interest, right, or places of impact, people of impact for the world, to carry on your message. Okay. Again, this is not a political channel, but if you look at this, is when I first channeled this, I thought of Barack Obama. Okay. Because it's no secret that Barack Obama is still in Washington, D.C. Okay. Many people say, oh, Barack Obama's, running really, or having his third term or fourth term or whatever, just jokingly. Okay. This is not a political thing. But this is Barack Obama saying, yeah, I accomplished being president, but now I'm going to go behind the scenes and I'm going to make sure my message and my legacy and my impact is carried on. Okay. Do you see that? You guys see that? That's what he's doing. And that's part of his chart, right? That's part of every human's evolutionary process in life is, after they do something big, yeah, of course, they're going to want to then, and the natural progression would be to secure it, to sustain it, okay? So after you and your person do this, now you're going to go into sustenance mode, and you're going to make sure that either big time corporations or government figures or government, entities are impacted by or have a long lasting, contribution of your particular value that you put on, that is going to last many, 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 many years to come. Okay. That's 11th house. It's leaving your legacy with other things of the earth, right? Other important or impactful things of the earth, to allow it to spread even more without you being there. Right? Think of one other way I like to play with this too is like with businesses, because as business owners, right, we can't always do everything. Eventually, we have to step aside and let other people, right, hire people for us, and hire people to make other versions of our business in other places. This is 11th house. Okay, so it's using the value of things that we create outside of ourselves to carry on our mission, carry on our impact without us being there. Okay. And finally, we get to the 12th house, and 12th house is the easiest, the simplest. Okay. Because 12th house is the end. Right. When we get to the 12th house, after everything's said and done, we are complete. Complete. Right? We have the whole pie. And look, I drew that on accident, but look at this. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? That's not a coincidence. You see the circle. It didn't go back to the beginning, but it went another time. How isn't that cool? It went back another time, another round, and then it's gonna spiral. It's gonna go like this, all that stuff. Okay. That represents reincarnation. Thank you. I swear that was not me. That represents reincarnation, but it represents the completion of this lifetime. Okay, so you are returning to source. Turn to source. Okay. It's the 12th house is that's it. It's the end. It's the dissolution of your physical essence into the immaterial essence. 12th house is the immaterial essence, the spirit, the consciousness, the soul. Your physical body turns back into that until at which time, as we noted, it decides to, oh, I'm back. I'm back into the first house. What's up, everyone? I'm back again. That's what we all start off in life. Hey, I'm back again. And they say some of us remember, a little bit of our 12th house stuff when we come into this lifetime. I think that's very incredible. I know a lot of you have probably studied near-death experiences and you've seen this. Or babies who come into this life and they remember, some of the spirit world. So this is it. This is your complete journey here on Earth. I told you you were never going to hear, like you've never heard of this stuff before. You can't have because I just channeled it. So, but I God said today, he gave me permission to do something fun. This is fun for me, believe it or not. And not that the readings I do aren't fun. Those are fun too, but this is like stuff that really gets channeled through me that is, I think can be, it can really change your perspective on life. And that's really a core reason of why I believe I'm here. So, let me know your thoughts. I would love to know your thoughts on this system. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Of course, I'm not saying that this is 100% correct, but it is what I was shown. The evolutionary birth chart of our soul is like it can and does represent, and the order to it definitely does lead to a relationship. And so, final notes before we'll talk about the extended really briefly here, but and what that's going to be. But final notes are: use this video. I want you to really, if you want to, take a look at any of the areas. For those of you, depending on what you want, right? You may not even want a relationship if you're watching this video. That's okay. It doesn't matter. But if you are, take a look at where you might feel, incomplete, right? Have you done all of this? Have you accomplished and conquered all of these parts of yourself first? Where are you on your wheel? Right? Where are you on your journey to union, to relationship? And just know God is saying, hey, once you really fill those pieces in, there's nothing else you need to do. Like I'm going to give you your relationship at that point. Okay? So it's up to you though to use this information to your highest good and highest potential. Find out where you may not, have embodied enough of these other parts of the chart. Okay? And conversely, if you are in a relationship, and you're like ready to move forward, well, that's what you guys have ahead of you. That's where your relationship ought to be going. And I'll say this again, those of us who are wanting to be in a relationship or will be in a relationship or are in a relationship, if you and your person are not going through these stages, you're dying. Okay? Even the death and destruction phase, right? Like every relationship has to go through some form of that. I'm not saying it has to be like super dramatic form or even like physically separating form, but it has to be some form of that dissolution of former or individual selves in order to be one, right? To act as a unit. And couples who avoid that will inevitably, cause themselves to separate or worse, right? And eventually, if they go through that and they're not progressing towards, well, where are we here to impact the world as a unit, right? To teach and be leaders for this world as a unit, right? Yeah. Then again, so you have to see where also your relationship lies on this scale as well, and ultimately what you and your person are here to do and accomplish and impact for the world, and that's going to be different for everyone. Let's real quick talk about the extended. The extended is going to be very unique. I am basically going to take all 12 signs, okay, and just give a very quick run through, detailed but quick, right? Like concise. I'm not going to ramble on for 30 minutes for each sign, but a concise run through of each of the 12 signs. So Aries through Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini. And you have to know your rising sign. So if you don't know your rising sign, if you don't know your birth time, unfortunately, this won't be for you, because those of you who do know, you'll be able to actually look and say, all right, for example, I'm an Aries rising, right? This isn't me, by the way, so I'm not an Aries rising. That'd be a lot of fire for me. You would say, all right, I'm an Aries rising, and then each different rising sign has a different theme of how they're meant to discover each parts of the houses, right? So for example, I'll just say as an example, like Aries is the most standard in that it's literally going to be as close to possible as what I just described, because it's going to be like the signs here are very closely related to the houses. Okay. So it's going to be very standard, but I'll talk about that in a little more in-depth way, because that is your actual rising sign. So I'll tell you what that means. Or let's say this is Taurus, right? Okay. If you were Taurus rising, that means you'd have Gemini in the second house. And so if you have Gemini in the second house, what does that mean for how you are meant to discover your values, or how are your values meant to be learned or portrayed to you, or how are they going to come across to you, right? Like chances are they're going to be, your values are going to be something around learning and or intellectualism and or your knowledge is everything, right? Or the more you know, the better you are, and that's your thing, right? So things like that is you're gonna learn very important details about the way in which you're meant to establish these houses per your rising sign. So anyways, it'll be awesome. I promise. If you know your rising sign, it's definitely going to be worth it if you're interested, of course. And everything will also be channeled as well. So if you enjoyed this, I hope it helped. And please be sure we've gone an hour, of course. Like I always plan. I'm like trying to get these videos like 20 to 30 minutes, and it just doesn't work for me sometimes. Like there's just a lot, and there's of course the extended as well. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments if you did. Hit that like button if you really liked it, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. If you want more content just like this. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll see you in the extended or on the next one. Bye for now.